Okay, welcome everybody to Steve and Friends. We've got a great interview lined up right now with a magnificent human being, Hannah Johnson. Everybody who knows her loves her to bits, and you're going to love her as well. An amazing story. She's a sports chaplain, and sports, for me, is right up there with one of the most important things in the world. So I'm going to definitely enjoy some of the insights. But firstly, Hannah, for those people that don't know you too well, just explain. You're in Brisbane right now, but you didn't start in Brisbane. So where did it all transpire? Where did it all begin?
Yeah, so I was born in Sydney, the youngest of 4 kids, and then we lived in England for a couple of years, and then back to Sydney, represent. And grew up most of my life in Sydney. I have a twin sister, and then another older sister and a brother. That's kind of my life.
So you're twins. We've got twins as grandchildren. It's always important who's the oldest out of the twins. So who came out first?
Yes, well, it's important for the oldest, I think. I am the youngest.
Good
she
point.
likes to remind me that.
We'll move on then. Okay, no problem. Now, a little known fact about you, even people that know you, not everybody would know this, but you have actually worked on a Disney cruise liner. What's that all about? Where did you go? What did you get up to?
Yeah, so I was the youth activities manager, and so I worked on our classic ships. We had about 2,200 guests, and over 1,000 of them were under 18, who I was responsible for.
Oh my goodness!
To see some great parts of the world. I did Mexican Riviera. I did Alaska twice. I did the Bahamas, the Caribbean, Hawaii. So got to see some great places.
Well done. Okay. Would you go on a cruise ship now with all the COVID stuff going on?
Absolutely not at the moment. And it's not my ideal holiday, no.
No. All right. Well, good experience, but it's in the past. All right. Let's get into this because this is fascinating. So your own sporting career, you're known as a sports chaplain to us all right now, but you actually were a great sports person in your own right. So what was the story? What was the sport and how far did you get? What happened? Just tell us yours.
Yeah, so my mum forced us to play hockey. We didn't want to, but she forced us to do it. And then we fell in love with the sport. So I started playing, sort of state under 16s and 18s, 21s, played some junior national, played at the first Youth Olympic Festival. And and then retired shortly after that due to injury.
So a couple of things there. So Youth Olympics Festival. So that's not the Olympic Games itself, but it's the first youth version of international events. So you got that far. That's pretty cool. So you obviously had your heart set on going further and further. You just throw it out there, your injury. I mean, what happened?
Yeah, so a couple of years before I retired, I was a goalkeeper in hockey, and you dive a lot to save the ball. And I dived and popped my shoulder out, and then my shoulders just kept popping out. So I would get it back in, rehab, and then it would happen again. And so, it sort of became time to hang up the boots.
Hang up the boots and hang up the hockey stick. Wow. So, I mean, that's got to be greatly disappointing. How old were you? 19?
Yeah.
So, like all teens, I presume, if you're good at something, you've got your heart set on, you're going further and further, you get to international events. So, shoulders popping in and popping out. But what did it do inside of you, apart from the physical? Did that really get you down, or how did you respond?
I definitely, it was a tough decision to make. But, I guess there's, just some key moments where God really just reminded me that he hadn't forgotten me, and that he knew where I was. And, I was able to have, that peace when it didn't seem like I should have it. Right.
So God help you through that. That's a big one. Okay. Let's just go from yourself to your twin sister, the older sister of a few minutes or whatever it was. Now, she had a successful career, you could say, but likewise, like yourself, went through a real traumatic experience. What was her story?
Yeah, so she also was a very good elite player. She headed over to Perth in 2004 and joined the Aussie squad, the Open squad, and 2008 was at Beijing Olympics, which was a dream come true. Wow. 2 days before the opening ceremony, they played a trial game against Argentina, and she did a hamstring. And most sports people have done a hammy. It's not a massive injury, but at the wrong time, it's a pretty massive injury. And so she was given 20 hours to prove her fitness. That didn't happen. And then in her terms, she was evicted from the village and put up into a hotel in China by herself whilst they brought in another player. And that was sort of her Olympic dream gone.
Oh my goodness. So where were you and the family, back in Australia or over there?
Yeah, so we were all back in Australia. We hadn't headed over yet. And so, it sort of took us a bit of time actually to even hear about what had happened and to then be able to actually contact her back in 2008. It wasn't quite as, contactable to the rest of the world. But, then Mum headed over and met her over there. The rest of us didn't go. And then she sort of came home after about a week because it was just a bit too tough to be there wanting to cheer on your friends and your team, but also a very big reminder that you're not out there.
Yeah, absolutely. So was that the end of her career, or did she make a comeback?
Yeah, no, she came back. So again, it was just a hammy. So it was just, a couple of weeks she was out, and then
the worst 2 weeks to be out while the Olympics are on.
Absolutely, yeah, worst time ever. But the injury, she had plenty more worse injuries in her career, just at better times. So no, she continued on. She played at Delhi Com Games in 2010. They won gold there. And then she retired from Australia after that, and then headed over to Holland to play professionally for a couple of seasons.
Wow. So at least one of you had some sort of a career in the actual playing, which you must be delighted for her, but it must hurt at the same time, especially two twins. Hey, crazy. Okay, so I love the story. You're talking about the Delhi Commonwealth Games where your sister is there. Now, you did get the chance to go over there, and some pretty cool things happened, obviously for her in the sporting field, but also for yourself. What was it about that trip that had a marked effect on your life?
Yeah, so those games were a little bit unique. It wasn't a very, safe place to be at that time. And so the athletes had very little freedom on where they could go. And at any games, we have what we call Australia House, where the friends and family are able to see their athletes or their loved ones. And so, we spent a lot more time in Aussie House at those games than any other because we couldn't go anywhere else with her. And so I just find myself, hanging around and just connecting and chatting with other athletes. And at that time, I didn't know what sports chaplaincy was, but in hindsight, I was doing what I do it now. So as a sports chaplain, just coming alongside and supporting people from the families through to the athletes themselves. Yeah.
So you didn't even know what chaplaincy was, but you were just connecting the dots, doing what came naturally to you, helping, encouraging, helping with faith, helping with practicality. That's fantastic. So subsequent to the Delhi Games, you come back. How did you find out about chaplaincy then, and such a thing existed when you'd actually been doing it?
So it took me another 2 years to actually discover sports chaplaincy. And those that know George Danzy from our Hills campus, he sort of found it and then let me know about it. And then that's when I kind of went along to something where they sort of shared more information about it. And I went, this is what I've been looking for. And really just felt I was in the right place for where God was calling me.
That's amazing. So the chaplaincy journey then, from day one, just tell us where that started and where it's gone to.
2012, I then became an accredited sports chaplain. And again, a lot of my world was already in elite sport, and so that's sort of where I found myself. I officially became the chaplain at Sydney Uni, their elite athlete program. And so that was working with sort of 400 different athletes across all different sports. And then I would be at the events to be able to cheer them on and support them. And and then I just found myself at more and more events, and then was over in Glasgow for Com Games there, and then Rio with the Olympics, and so kind of just took off. Yeah,
that sounds a very exciting life, but there's obviously that element to it. But where the rubber hits the road is you're helping people, some of them with real highs and lows, emotionally, not just physically, with all sorts of challenges and strains and stresses. I mean, those guys in athletics, they're not like the the soccer players, the footballers, the baseballers, the basketballers that are on multi-million-dollar contracts. Some of these have had their own jobs to support themselves just to be able to make it. So there's all sorts of challenges and strains and stresses in the athletics world and the world of elite sport. And you're facing all that. So what sort of things do you get involved with?
Yeah, so sort of as you said, you're there with some of the great highs of their lives, but also some of the real brutal moments. And sports are pretty unforgiving space. Everyone loves you when you're going well, but when you're not performing, then there's all sorts of abuse and all that sort of stuff that people get. And then, as you mentioned, especially in our Olympic and Paralympic space, which is what I work predominantly in, it's not a very funded sport. So even for some of them, they have to raise their own finance to get to the Olympics and Paralympics. So there's the challenges of that, challenges of career and sport. Sport has an end date to it. So helping people navigate that, being traveling and away from home. And I think one of the key things is really looking at identity. And I guess some stories to sort of share in this space at Com Games in 2018, we had one of our athletes, Declan Stacey, who's a diver. He's a great Christian guy, and he was there and loved the space that we had in the centre, in the village. We had a multi-faith centre, so he was able to come and join in with some Bible studies and worship, and even just have some space for his own private devotions. But for him, he at the start of the games, he wasn't competing till towards the end. In a training session, he'd hurt his shoulder, and so was able to come alongside him. We'd take communion every day and pray with him, and he was able to get up and dive when he needed to, and actually won a bronze medal, which was pretty amazing.
Wow.
So walking journeys like that. Other journeys, again, when your body is actually the tools that you use, which is what it is in sport. I had one girl who I'd normally would message before I'd call her, but I, just picked up the phone and felt a sense to give her a call, and she answered with, "Oh, hun, can I call you back?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure," and thought, I've called her at the wrong time, Anyway, she called me back, 10 minutes later or so, and just said that she was in the doctor's surgery, and the doctor had just told her that she'd never run again. And literally, as he finished that sentence, the phone rang and it was me. And she just said she had a real sense of hope, in a devastating moment. But because when she interacts with me, I bring hope to her, is what she sort of said. And, so had that opportunity to then pray with her. And then she went and got a second opinion. And she, she's still out there running. She actually would have been probably running this week at the Olympics if they were on.
Oh, wow. It's a big time, hey? Listen, there's one story that was doing the rounds a little bit, which was praising you. So I need you to be honest and just tell the story. But I think it just actually highlights for people the sort of lengths that you go to help people. And the reason why I mention this is not everybody on the planet, Christians included, are actually doing what they are gifted to do, what comes naturally, the gift that God has put in them. But you've kind of found that niche, which is why we love you, not only for what you do, but for who you are. But tell them that lawnmower story, because surely that doesn't come in anybody's job position. It's not on a PD, but it's just something that you did. So what happened there?
Yeah, so at the start of COVID, a lot of people in sports, especially staff, people that worked in sport, lost their jobs and were stood down. And so what I do is work with athletes as well as staff and, all the people involved. And so one of the guys who, I wouldn't say we were very close, but one of the sporting bodies that I sort of do chaplaincy at, he'd been stood down, and his partner was expecting their first child, and so they really needed to keep the money coming in. And he took a job doing FIFO. It was the first time he'd done FIFO in his life, and he'd sort of gone away, and I get this random sort of phone call from him, and he's like, "Han, my wife is, his partner is just sort of really not coping with him being away, being so heavily pregnant, and he hadn't mowed the lawns before he left, which she'd asked him to do." And so she was sort of really frustrated and on the phone to him. And so he's like, "Han, I don't know who else to call, but is there anything you can do to help me?" And so I yeah, contacted Warner, grabbed a lawnmower, headed out there and mowed her lawn for her. And, through that, sort of connected with her. I hadn't really connected with her before. That was on a Saturday. Then on the Sunday, she just sort of messaged me or contacted me and sort of said, "What are you doing?" And so I was just like, "Oh, well, I'm actually, watching church online," and sent her a link to church online. And then she jumped on and enjoyed that service, and then, got her partner, who was away at the time, to jump onto the later service. And, we sort of walked a journey with them around church and God. And by Easter time, I was over their house. She had her whole family, well, not her whole family, but some of her family there. And, they all jumped on and were able to engage in church. And they still, to this day, are linked into church online, which is pretty cool.
All because you were willing to do the lawn for somebody. I think there's a great message there. So good on you. I also love the fact that the guy thinks, I don't know who else to turn to. Who am I going to turn to? I'll talk to Hannah. And I think that's a fantastic recommendation. So well done. Now, I first witnessed, if you like, firsthand the work of your hands at the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast. Now, what year was that? How many years ago? Now I'm completely lost track.
2018, yeah.
2018, just a couple of years back. And you were organising there, apart from everything else you were doing, looking after the athletes and so on. But I think was it the multi-faith, again, building or venue or something, and organised some meeting and managed to find a way for us to go in there and sing and lead worship and speak to all of those athletes, which was fantastic. And again, the warmth that everybody has from different parts of the globe for you and people like you, I thought was magnificent. So you've done some great work. The big subject I want to talk into right now is your own health journey, because listening to all of this, you give and then you give more. That's just who you are. But not just that sport injury that affected your back when you were in elite sport yourself, but you've gone through a whole health journey for years. Tell people about that.
So I guess about almost 8 years ago now, I started to have a few issues with some sort of, I guess, blacking out, and then with my vision. And so I've done a long journey with some neurologists and other doctors, and they've been trying to figure out why I would lose my vision. I, one day sort of was at the doctor's surgery and they were doing some stuff, and I lost my eyesight for 4 days straight, which isn't fun.
No.
But praise God, it came back. And then, it was sort of a whole lot of years of, I'd have some surgery and it would be all right for a couple of weeks or months. And then I'd go back to randomly losing vision and it coming back. And, so it's sort of, I've had, I guess, 7 lots of surgeries through that, which has been a very long and arduous, I guess, process.
Yeah.
But, I believe in a God that's a healer. And sort of through that, in December 19, at the start of the year there, was the last time, and I can tell you March 31st, when I left church that night, I didn't have vision in my right eye. And by the time I got home, it had come back and I haven't lost it again. And the doctors, have no understanding as to why that is the case, which is pretty cool. And then last year, I had a fall and cracked my skull, and so fractured that, and then had it actually pop out of place, and a whole lot of other dramas with that. And so that's been another journey. But the start of this year was the first year for about 7 years that I'd actually started the year with a clean bill of health, which was amazing.
That's fantastic.
But then even just over a month ago, I had a bit of a fall again, and ended up just having to get some stitches and glue and thought everything was fine. But then about a week later, they discovered that I had a delayed bleed between my brain and skull, and so had a little bit more surgery on that, hence my hair at the moment covering the marks. But again, just still recovering from that, but recovering well, which is good.
Well, you're awesome. What a story. And everybody listening to this, just pray for her right now as you're watching this, whatever time, wherever it is, because we need Hannah completely. I know you underplay some of those things, but I mean, there was one time, 2010, a hike to Nepal, which obviously everybody does one of those in life. You fell onto your head for 40 meters down a hill onto a boulder. Now, that's not a smart thing to do. It's not a good thing to do. But when you've had a few knocks on your head, it's those sorts of knocks on your head that anybody would, end up with needing surgery and so on. So you've faced so much personally yourself. The only reason you're talking about it is because I'm asking you. You would never do it otherwise, because we know you too well. But I just wanted people to know that the real you, all this is part of the real you, and you've got your own personal challenges as you go forward. So I really appreciate all of that honesty. So one thing I love, your faith is very real to you. So from a little girl forward, God has been a part of your world. But I love the way that you manage to bring faith and hope to people's world and to people's life, but you do it in such a dignified, easy, natural way. Can you just give us like a moment or two, just what this means to you? Why is faith so important to talk to athletes, which is your circle, your world? But how do you go around that, and why is it so important?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's Jesus is real. And, I am blessed that I've grown up in a Christian family. I, met Jesus at a very young age. And so I'm so thankful for what he's done in my life. And I've sort of shared, I've gone through a few challenges, and I couldn't imagine going through any of those without him. And so for me, I guess I see life as a gift that we're given and a joy that we get to live. And so doing that with God is the best way to be able to do it. And I think it's the only real way to be able to do it. And so I guess I want my world to actually get to know the Jesus that I know. And so, I see, again, sport's brutal, and I walk a lot of tough journeys with people, and I just want them to know they don't have to do it alone, but they get to do it with Jesus if they want. And so I live my life in a way to try and help, represent who he is to people, so that they can actually get to know the real Jesus and not maybe what they've heard or what they've been told about. But I think if anyone actually meets the God that I know, that they're going to fall in love with him just as I have, and that life is going to still be challenging at times, but going to be so much more achievable and more at peace to be able to walk when you do it with him. Yeah,
that's beautiful. Well, listen, my daughter was a junior gymnast in the British squad. Injury knocked her back. My son was a professional soccer player. I don't think either of those would have had anybody available like you in their world. I wish that was the case. I wish there was many more Hannah Johnsons around, not only for the sporting world, but just for people out there doing life. So thank you so much for all that you do. We love you, and we love what you're all about. You've got the biggest smile. You'll smile through the toughest of times. You'll face some massive challenges to try and help people in really awkward situations, but it never gets you down. And you're always up and always full of faith. And for that, we thank you and really appreciate you. So wherever you are watching this, give her a little round of applause, because Hannah Johnson is amazing. Anyway, God bless you, Hannah. God bless everybody listening. Please all stay safe. Trust you've enjoyed the last few minutes together. Go and share your faith with some people as well. Why not? See you.